So this will be the first step-by-step build video right here. Okay, so as you can see, I got the frame pieces for this part right here. Right now, we're just building the backside. Okay, if you remember the drawing, the backside of it has the two fan mounts. It has a power supply, it has a USB input, the two fan connectors, the Arduino mount right here, these holes, and then all the other holes mount to the frame. Okay. Now, if you did one fan, if you're just doing an exhaust port, then yours won't have this hole, and you won't have these holes either because these holes are made to hold a filter between them. Okay, these framing pieces are made to hold a filter between them. Okay, so first thing I did, I peeled off the layer, the protective stuff, right? If you have wood, chances are you don't have that, but I used acrylic right here. And I also took my countersink and I countersunk all these holes. Because the filter needs to lay flat, these fan screws can sit in there because they're countersunk. I know this looks small to you guys, but if I use these fan screws, I can put them in there and it's perfectly flat, right? There's no bump or ridges. That way the filter can lay flat. If you are not using a filter, if you just have the fan holes here, then you don't need to countersink these. It's just open. Like it just brings air through. There's no filter in front of it, so you can just suck the air out. Okay. So, with this in mind, first thing I did, again, was I countersunk these, right, while it's all in the open. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start attaching frame pieces. Okay. So, this is the back side. This is the front side. Okay. If I look at my drawing here, I can see that fans are on the right, power's on the left. So, this is the back side. This is the front side. What I'm going to do is preload this. So, every single hole, well, we'll start with the bottom one. Every single hole needs an M5 by 12, depending on the thickness of your acrylic, right? Or your whatever. This is 6mm acrylic. If I was going any thinner, I would use M5 by 10s. Okay? 6mm and thicker are where I start going M5 by 12, so that way it can reach all the way through. Okay? So this is 6mm acrylic. So I have a bolt or a screw, whatever you want to call this, and then I put a washer on it, right? So bolt and washer. Then I bring it through the hole here, and then I capture it with one of these slot nuts here. And just barely, I don't like tighten it up. These are the slot nuts I'm using. Okay, so I'm going to do that for all 6 of these holes. 6? Yeah, 6. Cool. Okay. So grab that. So screw, washer, come through the acrylic, and then just lightly grab it with the slot nut, right? I'm going to do that a few times here. All right, so I got my 6 assemblies down here on bottom, right? So I'm going to take one of my full length pieces here. Now, mine's a little wider than yours might be. Mine might be skinnier than yours might be, right? If you remember the first and second video on how to actually choose the size, like you might have a little one, you might have a huge one. So yours might not look exactly the same as mine. Keep that in mind while you're doing this. Okay? So mine's just a general reference. You're still going to have 6 holes on bottom, and you're still going to build the frame like this, but yours might only be this long, right? Or this long, or yours might be way longer. So keep that in mind. Anyways, I've got these 6 screws in. I'm going to slide this through the nuts here. So every time I lift the nut up, align it, and then slide the rail on. So I'm going to lift it up, align it, slide the rail on. Okay, lift it up. Okay, this one's a little tight, so I'm going to loosen it up just a little bit here. That way it can let the rail through. Maybe. There we go. That's loose enough. Cool. Okay, same thing. And then here we go on the last one. Perfect. Okay. Now there's space on each side of this, right? There's a little bit of gap here and gap here. That's on purpose, okay? That's because your sidewalls are 1/8 inch or 3mm acrylic, or maybe you don't even have sidewalls. I don't know. Like, you don't need sidewalls to build these things. But if you do, the design is for 1/8 inch or 3mm. So make sure you just center this as best you can. If you don't get it perfectly centered, we can always move it later. But right now, I'm going to try to get it centered as best as I can. Okay? So once it's centered, I also want the bottom of the extrusion here to match the bottom of the acrylic. So I'm going to get that going as best as I can. Then I'm going to take my Allen wrench here. I'm going to start on one extreme side, okay? I'm going to start over here. There you go. I adjusted it a little so it's perfectly flush. Do the same thing over here. All right. Not too tight, but like firm tight, right? That's a tough one to explain over a video, right? How tight something should actually be. But yeah, you don't want to wrench it. If you're using like an actual wrench to tighten it, go real careful, okay? This one has a little bit of a T, so I can put a little bit of torque into it, but not that much. I'm still not gonna like wrench it like as if my life depended on it. I'm just gonna, get it snug. If you guys are using Allens, like, that's probably safe. Don't do it this way, right? Don't do it long ways. Do it tall ways here, okay? To get those screws on. Okay, but I have this fancy little T-handle tool that I'll be using. So I'm just gonna go in, firm all those up. Cool. Now I'm going to do something very similar here. All right, with this guy. I'm again going to preload the screws. So it's, again, screw, washer, and then slot nut, right? So I'm not doing it on the top row yet. I'm doing it on all 5 braces. Unless you don't have a filter. Then you just have 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? If you have a filter, then you're going to have a brace right here also. I like to work out of Dixie cups because I have these huge trays just full of screws, and it sucks to figure out where to put them. The Dixie cups fit a lot better on my desk. So I just go in and scoop. I'll scoop a bunch of nuts and bolts. Okay, so there's that side done. I usually ignore things that fall. Like, I'll care about that later. That's not the first thing I'm going to drop, and I've got a pile of stuff here. I usually clean up later in the day. All right, there we go. So there's all the cross brace mounts. Now I'll just have to put the cross braces on. Same idea, right? Where I slide it on and I line it up. So here I go. So line up this bolt here, right, or this nut. Then I'm going to slide it on. Okay, it captured. Same thing down here. There we go. Now this one, I just want to center it as best as I can. As you can see, there's a little bit of wobble there. Center it as best as I can right here. Okay. And then I'm going to tighten it up just hand tight on the back side. I'm going to do that to all of them. Okay, looks pretty straight. If it's not perfectly straight, we'll tell by the filter. If you don't have a filter, again, you don't have to use this piece. But once I put the filter in here, I can tell if everything's square or not. And that is just those two screws back here to line it up. And again, the sides aren't going to be flush. So this one all the way to the right, there's going to be a little bit of a gap, about an 1/8 inch of a gap. That's correct. That's the way it should be. And this part of the frame being perfectly straight is not a big issue. This isn't where the accuracy of the machine comes in, the back panel. We'll we'll talk about the importance of accuracy on a later part. But this part, if it's pretty like wobbly, whatever, like angled and stuff, not a big deal. Okay, not gonna ruin anything. This isn't where accuracy matters yet. So I'm going to tighten all these up now. And I'm going to verify that they're pushed all the way down as I'm doing this. All right. And while it's in this position, I might as well load up the last of it. So I'm going to take my washers. I'm going to go a little faster here, right? So washer, 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 and one more, right? There's 6 on top. Okay. Then I'm going to do bolt. Lots of bolts all the way through here. All right. Now, this is going to sound a little weird, but I'm going to do something called preloading. Before I put this bar on, I'm going to preload some of these slot nuts here. Okay. Now, I know as this thing stands up, they're just going to, well, on mine anyways, I'm going to have an acrylic frame around it, right? I'm going to have full acrylics. If you're not going to have acrylic around it, just have it open. That's perfectly fine. But since I'm going to have a frame, I'm going to have a piece that comes off here, right? Same thing on the other side. Piece that comes off here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some slot nuts inside here, right? Just drop them in. And here's another one. Because I know there's 2 holes that the acrylic piece mounts to. And so if I preload them, I won't have to take it apart and add them. And I won't have to use drop-ins. And if you do have to use drop-ins, I'll show you some cool tips and tricks a little later. But here I go, dropping them in, dropping them in. Now I also have an end stop. The y-axis end stop goes over here. So I'm going to preload that also. Okay. So now that I got these preloaded, now I'm going to fill this up. So these do slide around, right? If I were to pick this up and like tilt it up, all those nuts would come falling out. So keep that in mind. Don't do what I've done many times. So slot nut, screwing them in here. All right. And now the last piece for the backside anyways. I'm going to slide in. So, verify. I've got slot nuts in here. Okay, that's good. I got slot nuts in here, preloaded. Okay, let's see. And I got the ones in here for my end stop piece. We'll go over that later, what that is. But chances are you need them here. If you do not have this brace, make sure to put those in this one all the way out here. Okay, your X or your Y-axis end stop will be on this side instead of this side if you don't have this brace. Okay, here I go. Okay, in the cutting video, you might remember me saying it's all right if they're a little short. So, again, it's all right if they're a little short, right? Just try to make this top line as flush as you can with the rail itself. So I'm going to start over here. and center it as best as possible. And again, accuracy doesn't matter yet on this thing. Oh, I just realized I forgot 2 drop-ins. So what I'm going to do is loosen this up and put those in. So I'm loosening these guys up because on our drawing we have rails that come out of this, and those need to be mounted to the frame. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to slide this over. All right, try to get this in camera. So slide this over, drop one in, and slide it back on. Then I'm going to slide it over the other way. Okay, drop one in, and slide it back on. Perfect. Okay, so back to business here. Okay, line it up again, center it, and then tighten the rest of the screws. All right. Now I have just a couple things left to mount onto this. Like, we'll start with the power supply here, or the power input panel, I guess. Okay, so I like my power switch on the bottom. If you want, you can always twist it, put power switch on top. That works too, right? Doesn't really matter. It's just power. Okay. Okay, so power and switch on bottom here. Okay. Now I'm going to use my M3s. This looks like it's M3 by 12. Okay, so here's 2 M3s. Two washers. And that's plenty on the backside. Okay, that's fine. Cool. And then we'll do washer on the backside and a lock nut. Because it's power and it's small, I don't ever want it coming loose. So first I put the washer, then I put the lock nut on. And then I tighten it up. And do it one more time. Ooh, this is a little tighter. Might have to trick it to going in there. Let's see what I can do. Kind of hard to get a good camera angle on this. But what I'm going to do here, I'm going to take a pair of, I guess, tongs. You can take pliers and do the same thing. But with it vertical like this, I'm going to take the mouth here and put a washer on it. And then do the same thing with my lock nut. And once it gets to the locking part of that nut, now I take my tool and tighten it on. And there we go. Now we got the power panel in, the power input piece in. Okay, next thing I'm going to put on is a USB cable. Just this short little guy, right? Okay. Just goes like that right there. Hey, and you can let this cord dangle for now. And again, I'm going to use M3 by 12s. And always use washers. In this application anyways, use washers everywhere. There we go. Cool. All right. So there's USB. And now we're going to put the 2.5 millimeter JST connectors in. So I'm just going to make sure they fit on mine here. Yeah, mine are a little loose here. Okay. That's all right. I'll put this vertical again. And what I can do is I'll bring the camera down to show this. This one might be a little tricky. There we go. Hopefully you can see that. Okay. So here's my super glue here. All right, it might be branded a ton of other things, but it's just cyanoacrylate super glue. So I'm going to put a little dab in here, okay, in each of the holes. Oh, I've got some drool. Gonna wipe that up. Okay. So it's got these little dabs in there, right? So now I'm going to take this and with the open position up, I'm going to set this in there. Okay. You might want to wear gloves for this because it is super glue. I personally don't care. And then there we go. And it sticks out just a little, and that's fine. It's kind of what you want. As long as you can reach the pins and back once we get to soldering. I guess I should mention, you don't actually have to use these things. You can have wires just coming out straight to your fans. I like the connector so I can disconnect and reconnect things, but if you don't want to use these, like, you don't have to. You can always go directly wires coming out of the holes to your fans. Doesn't have to be through a nice little connector here. Okay, So I've got that going. Now, if you don't have kicker, you're gonna have to wait. But I have this little kicker, this stuff that makes it instantly cure. And what I do is I'll unscrew the top here and use a straw with a little bit of the kicker on it and dab it in there. And it's going to work its way in there and start curing the super glue. Then I give it a minute or two. Well, not a minute or two, like a little bit. It's fast. It works really fast on this stuff. But I'm going to come to the back side and put a little more on there. All right. Got a little more drool. Gonna have to catch that. And then again, since it's all in here, I'm just gonna spray it. Cool, that'll cure it real fast. And there we have it. This is now our back panel, all complete. I'll zoom out for you guys to see it. There it is. So we got our power input, we got our USB input, our fan connectors, we have our frame built, and then we have countersunk holes here for the fans, unless you're not using a filter, and then you just have one hole, don't need countersink, and you don't have this. Thanks for watching. There'll be a few more videos for this.